Tara held the stroller up with one hand like it was evidence of something shameful. "This," she said, loudly enough for the entire baby goods aisle to hear. "You're seriously suggesting this?" She laughed, a bright, carrying laugh that pulled the attention of two other shoppers and a store assistant who had been refolding blankets nearby. Then she walked 3 steps to her left and placed her hand on the display model beside it. White frame, leather handlebar, a brand name on the side that I recognized because I had seen it on the accounts. "This," she announced, "is what a real mother buys." She was 7 months pregnant and glowing and completely certain of herself, the way Tara had always been completely certain of herself in any room she entered. I looked at the price tag on the display model. $3,200. I smiled at her and said absolutely nothing. "Here you go. My name is Nadia, and thank you for listening to my story of betrayal, resilience, and justice. I'd love to know where you're watching from. Are you on your commute, taking a break at work, or cozy at home? Share it in the comments so we can connect and swap stories like this together. If this story pulled you in, don't forget to subscribe, give it a like, and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next real-life drama. Every share helps these stories reach someone who needs to hear them. Let's keep the conversation and the justice going." She kept going the whole time we were in the store. Little comments, delivered with that particular lightness she used when she wanted something to sound casual but land hard. The stroller I had suggested was basic. The brand was fine if you don't really care. She picked up a muslin swaddle set I had placed in the cart and turned it over, squinting at it like she was inspecting produce. "I just think," she said, setting it back down without putting it in the cart, "that you should want the best for your baby, you know? My baby was due 6 weeks after hers. We were shopping together because she had asked me to come. Said she wanted the company, wanted another set of eyes." That was what she had said. What I knew, standing in that aisle with her voice moving around me like background noise, was the thing I had been keeping to myself for 4 months. The nursery she had been bragging about to everyone who would listen, the one she was already posting about online, was being paid for entirely by me. The moment it actually ended for me came at the checkout. We had moved through the store for another 40 minutes. She had added items to a wish list on the store's app, photographed displays, held things up and put them back with the focused energy of someone who was planning something significant. At the register, she placed the expensive stroller on the counter with both hands and then looked at me with an expression I had seen before, the soft, assumed look that preceded a request that wasn't really a request. "You can just cover this one too, right?" she said. Not a question. Not quite. The two did the work of making it feel like a continuation of something already established, something normal, something I had already agreed to simply by existing beside her. I felt something go still inside me. Not anger. Quieter than anger. A door closing in a room that had been open for a very long time. "Let me think about it," I said. She had already turned back to the cashier. It had started 4 months ago, on a Tuesday evening when Tara called me crying. She and her husband Noel had done the numbers, really done them, she said, not just the optimistic version, and the nursery they had planned wasn't going to happen the way she had imagined it. The custom crib. The imported French dresser with the brass handles. The pendant lighting she had pinned and repinned for 2 years. The designer rocking chair that she had already told people about. She sobbed. Said she felt like a failure. Said she didn't know how she was going to face people. I had listened for a long time before I said anything. Then I told her I would help. I told her to send me the list. I asked her to keep my name off it, not because I was ashamed, but because I knew Tara, and I knew that if my name was on it, the story would become complicated in ways that would make her feel indebted in a way she couldn't carry comfortably. So I kept it clean. I paid the deposits quietly, routed the deliveries through her address, and stayed invisible. She had told everyone she built it herself. I had let her because that was the kindness I thought I was offering. Her social media had become, in those 4 months, a running documentary of the nursery's progress. Every delivery, photographed in its packaging. Every item assembled, framed in the warm light of the room she had painted herself. That part was genuinely hers, the pale sage green on the walls, and she had done it beautifully. But everything inside it, the crib with its curved spindles, the dresser with the brass hardware, the round cloud pendant light that cast the whole room in something soft and golden, those had come from my accounts. She tagged the brands. The brands reposted her. She gained followers. People commented things like, "You worked so hard for this and your baby is so lucky," and she responded to every single one with a small, modest emoji that implied she had indeed worked very hard. I watched it from my phone some evenings, not with bitterness exactly, more with the feeling of someone who has given a gift and is watching the recipient enjoy it, which is supposed to feel good. It had felt good for a while. Standing at the checkout, listening to "You Can Just Cover This Too," it had stopped feeling good entirely. I drove home alone after dropping Tara at her car. She had ended the shopping trip cheerfully, no stroller purchased. She said she'd think about what worked best, which I understood to mean she was still expecting me to fund the expensive one. She kissed my cheek at the parking lot and told me to text her. I sat in my own car for a moment before starting the engine. Then I opened my email on my phone. Every order was there. Every invoice, every confirmation, every delivery notification. 6 pending orders still outstanding. The rocking chair, the custom mobile, the nursing ottoman, a set of blackout curtains made by a small maker in another state, a monogram changing mat, and the designer stroller. That last one I had been slow to order, something in me hesitating, and now I understood why. I scrolled through the list. Each item had a cancellation option. I hovered over the first one. The cursor sat there. The custom crib had already been built. That was the note attached to the cancellation confirmation. Item has been produced. Non-refundable. Shipment can be halted upon request. I requested the halt. The money was already spent and it wasn't coming back to me, but the crib would not be arriving at Tara's house on Thursday as scheduled. I sat with that for a moment. Then I closed the email and made dinner. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't call Tara. I didn't send a long message explaining myself or building a case or listing everything I had done and everything she had said. I just made pasta, ate it at my kitchen table, and went to bed earlier than usual. The crib was somewhere in a warehouse being rerouted. There were 6 more orders. I would deal with them in the morning. I canceled them over the next 2 days, one at a time. The dresser. The imported pendant light with its long, careful shipping estimate from overseas. The designer rocking chair that Tara had mentioned by name in 3 separate Instagram captions. Each cancellation was a short process, a confirmation email, a click, a reference number. Efficient and quiet, the same way the original orders had been placed. What surprised me was how I felt doing it. Not guilty. Not vindictive either. Something more like clarity. The specific feeling of walking back to a decision you made when you were in a different emotional state and understanding now that it was the wrong shape for what you actually needed. I had given from a place of genuine love. But love that goes unacknowledged long enough starts to lose its original form. It starts to look, from the outside, like a resource. Like something available. On the second evening, while I was canceling the rocking chair, my phone rang. Tara's name on the screen. "Hey," she said, her voice carrying that particular edge of someone trying to sound casual about something that wasn't. "Did something happen with the crib delivery?" "I got a notification that it was delayed," I said. "What kind of notification?" "It just said the shipment was paused." "Which is weird because Thursday was confirmed." She paused. "Did something change on your end?" I told her I would look into it. She said okay in a way that meant she expected me to fix it immediately, which I noted without responding to. Then she told me about a new cushion she had seen for the rocking chair and said she'd send me the link. After the call, I sat on my couch with the phone face down on my knee. She still thought she was in control of this. She thought the delay was a logistical hiccup in a system she was at the center of, a system that ran on my effort and my money, but that she had come to experience as simply the way things worked. There were 5 more orders I hadn't touched yet. The baby shower was 3 weeks away. Tara had planned it the way she planned everything. Thoroughly, with a vision board, a color palette, and a guest list that included people from every layer of her social life. 40 guests. A catered brunch at her house. And the nursery, which was supposed to be the centerpiece, the thing people would tour and admire and photograph and share. She had been building toward this moment for months. The nursery was the point. Not just privately, publicly. It was the thing she was going to show people. The physical proof of the story she had been telling online, that she was the kind of woman who created beautiful things for her family, who had taste and means and the follow-through to match her vision. I knew what those remaining deliveries meant to that plan. The rocking chair, the ottoman, the curtains, the mobile, the changing mat. Without them, the room would be bare sage green walls and an empty floor. I canceled the nursing ottoman on a Wednesday afternoon and closed my laptop. The cracks started showing about 10 days before the shower. Tara had been posting teaser content, corners of the room, the painted walls, a single close-up of the crib spindles from before the delivery was halted, now saved and reused as though the crib were already assembled in the room. At a small get-together at our mother's house, 2 of her friends asked her about the pendant light she had posted about back in the spring. "It's coming," Tara said smoothly. "International shipping always takes longer than they quote." She laughed. They laughed. It passed. But I was sitting across the room and I watched her pick up her phone immediately after, her thumb moving quickly. She was checking tracking information that no longer existed in any meaningful way. Then she looked up and found me watching her. She set her phone down and smiled at me, normal, bright, the standard Tara smile. But just before the smile arrived, for one small moment, I saw the math happening behind her eyes. She pulled me aside before I left. We stood near the hallway, slightly away from the others. She kept her voice low, which was unusual for Tara. Low voices meant she was being strategic, not emotional. "I don't know what's going on with the deliveries," she said, "but if something's wrong with the payments, just fix it. Not can you look into it, not I'm a little worried, do you know what's happening? Just fix it." The word landed the same way "you can just cover this too" had landed, with the weight of something assumed rather than asked for. A direction given to someone whose job it was to handle things in the background while Tara remained in the foreground, untroubled. I looked at her for a moment. Her expression was slightly impatient, slightly distracted, already thinking ahead to the next thing she needed to manage. "I'll look into it," I said. Which was technically true. I would look into it. I would look right at it and leave it exactly where it was. She called twice more that week. Both times, I answered and kept my voice easy, listened to her describe a delivery notification she had misread or a tracking number that wasn't updating, and offered the kind of vague reassurance that committed me to nothing. On the third call, I didn't answer. The next morning, I sent her a text instead. Short, measured, the kind that left no room for a follow-up argument. "Maybe don't order things you can't afford." I put the phone down on my kitchen counter and went to make coffee. It rang within 40 seconds. I let it ring. When the ringing stopped, a message appeared. Asterisk, what is that supposed to mean? "I can afford my own things, asterisk." I read it. Did not reply. Poured my coffee. Stood at the kitchen window and watched the street outside for a few minutes, where nothing in particular was happening. The shower was 9 days away. The room, as it currently stood, had painted walls, a halted crib in a warehouse, and several $1,000s worth of beautiful furniture that was no longer on its way to anyone. The next time I saw Tara in person was at the shower itself. She had pushed through the uncertainty. That was Tara's particular strength, and I had always genuinely admired it. She was a woman who could sense the ground shifting beneath her and keep her posture perfectly straight anyway, at least in public. The house looked beautiful. She had filled the gaps with things she actually owned, some framed art, a basket of rolled blankets, string lights along the window, and the nursery, while much emptier than planned, had a spare kind of charm that she was now describing to anyone who asked as intentional minimalism. The guests were warm. The brunch food was good. I sat near the window with a plate of fruit and watched her navigate the room, working it the way she always did, moving easily from group to group. Then a woman near me, Petra, a friend of Tara's from her old job, said loudly and cheerfully to the table, "You must be doing so well to have afforded all this planning." Honestly, where does she find the time and the money? Tara smiled. But the smile was half a second late. Petra was still talking. "I mean, the nursery alone. I saw the posts, that crib looked incredible. The lighting. That rocking chair. Tell me your secret," she said, laughing. "How do you actually manage it all?" Tara opened her mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. "It's just about priorities," she said. "If something matters to you." "It really is beautiful," Petra said warmly, not letting the moment die. "Did you find everything locally or did you order most of it?" Because I've been trying to redo my guest room and I can't find anything that looks that good within any kind of reasonable budget. A small pause opened up, maybe 2 seconds, probably less. But it was visible. The kind of pause that doesn't happen when someone is telling their own true story. I had been quiet all morning. I had sat at my window table and eaten my fruit and kept my expression pleasant and uninvolved. But I was sitting close enough that it would be natural for me to speak. It's actually not as simple as that, I said gently into the pause. Every conversation within about 6 feet of us slowed without stopping. That particular quality of attention, not staring, just redirected, moved through the nearby cluster of guests like a change in air pressure. Tara turned to look at me. Her eyes carried a clear message. I had seen that look before. In childhood, across dinner tables, in the backseats of cars on long family trips. It was the look that meant do not. I held her gaze for a moment. I wasn't angry. I want to be clear about that, because it matters to how I said what came next. There was no heat in me. No desire to embarrass her, or to make the moment larger than it needed to be. I simply had arrived at the end of something, and the end had arrived here, in this room, at this particular question from Petra, and I was done navigating around it. It's a longer story, I said still calmly. The nursery took a lot of work to put together. I let that sit for exactly 1 second. Then I said, I've been covering the expenses. The silence that followed was the complete kind. Not awkward, complete. Like a sentence that has been fully spoken and is waiting for the next one to begin. Petra looked at me. Looked at Tara. Back at me. She started. The deposits, the orders, the deliveries, I said quietly. I set it all up. Tara had a difficult stretch financially a few months back and I stepped in. I kept my name off everything because I wanted it to feel like hers. I was not performing this. My voice was level. I wasn't looking at the room. I was looking at Petra, who had asked an honest question and deserved an honest answer. But I was aware, in the way you are aware of things at the edges of your vision, that the shift was moving outward. Someone put down a glass. Someone else stopped mid-sentence 2 tables over. Tara was standing very still in the way that people stand still when the ground has moved and they are not yet sure how far. Tara found her voice first. She helped, she said. Her tone was light, surface bright, working fast. That's what family does, right? She helped out a little. It was really more of a... I canceled the remaining orders, I said. Not loudly. Not cruelly. Just factually, the way you state something that has already happened and cannot unhappen. Tara's sentence stopped mid-construction. The brightness in her face went through a visible sequence. Confusion, recalculation, and then, finally, the arrival of what I could only describe as real understanding. Not the performed understanding of someone deciding how to respond, but the genuine kind, where a person's body processes information that their mind has been avoiding. She knew in that moment exactly what the cancelled orders meant. The rocking chair that wasn't coming. The ottoman. The curtains. The mobile. The nursery that guests were going to tour in approximately 40 minutes. She knew what was in that room and what wasn't. And she knew she had no way to fix it before anyone walked through that door. I watched her face change. She had a remarkable face for composure. I had always known that. Years of watching Tara manage difficult moments in public had taught me what her composed face looked like versus what was happening underneath it. I had seen her deliver bad news at a family dinner with a voice so steady no one realized it was bad news until the next morning. I had seen her argue with Noelle in a parking lot and then walk into a party 30 seconds later looking like she had just come from a spa. But this was different. This was the specific panic of someone who has built a structure on a foundation they assumed was permanent and has just felt it pull away. Her hands weren't shaking, but her posture had changed. Something had gone out of it. The forward, owning quality she carried everywhere. She touched my arm once, gently, and then let go. "Can we talk?" she said quietly. "Of course," I said. She took me to the hallway outside the nursery. The door was closed. Through it, I knew, was the room she had been photographing and posting and describing for months. The sage green walls. The crib that had never arrived. The floor where a rocking chair should have been. She stood with her back to the door and looked at me with an expression I had not seen on her face in our entire adult lives. Not terror performing vulnerability. Actually vulnerable. Can you just put it back? She said. Her voice was very quiet. The orders. Can you just reinstate them? I'll pay you back. Not all at once, but Noel and I can work out a plan. She kept talking, but I had already heard the thing that mattered. I'll pay you back. 4 months of funding. Tens of thousands of dollars. Posts and captions and tags, and the quiet daily decision to let her take credit. And the first time she acknowledged the money was in a hallway, out of public view, when she needed me to put it back so the afternoon would go smoothly. I looked at her. No, I said. She stared at me. I think she genuinely had not considered that I would say no. Not because she was cruel, but because it had never happened before. I had always been the one who stepped in. The one who absorbed things quietly. The one who found a way. Tara, I said, and my voice was still gentle because I meant it to be, you stood in a store aisle and called me cheap. In front of strangers. Because I chose a stroller within my own budget. I paused. While you were buying things with my money. She opened her mouth. I kept going, still calm. I don't want an apology that's about fixing the orders. I don't want anything from this conversation that's about the nursery or the shower or what people are going to see when they walk through that door. I looked at her steadily. I want you to understand what just happened. Not to manage it. Actually understand it. She was very still. For the first time in our adult lives, she had absolutely nothing to say. We went back to the shower separately. I went first, slipping into the kitchen for a glass of water, letting the noise of the room settle back around me. The guests had redistributed themselves. Conversations had resumed. Plates had been refilled. The moment from the living room had been absorbed into the general texture of the afternoon the way most surprising things eventually are. But the quality of the room had changed. I could feel it without looking too hard, the subtle geometry of where eyes were pointing, the slight increase in whispered conversation, the way a few guests looked up when Tara came back in and tracked her path across the room with more attention than before. The story had moved. Petra caught my eye across the room and gave me a small, private nod that held more understanding than anything she could have put into words. The shower ended an hour early. Tara thanked everyone for coming with her usual warmth. But the energy was gone from it, the way music sounds different when the speaker is running low. The following week was quiet. I heard from my mother that Tara had contacted the few vendors with refundable orders and processed what she could. The non-refundable ones, including the crib now sitting in a warehouse, were more complicated. I heard she and Noel were figuring it out. Her social media had gone still. No nursery posts. No captions. No tags. The account that had been documenting every beautiful incoming detail had simply stopped mid-story, the way a sentence stops when something more important interrupts it. I didn't gloat. I didn't share anything, didn't tell the story to mutual friends, didn't do the thing that would have made me the villain in the next version of events. I went to work. I answered messages. I set up my own nursery slowly, in my own time, with the things I had actually chosen myself. On Thursday, Tara showed up at my apartment. She stood at the door with her coat buttoned and her hands in her pockets, and she looked, honestly, like someone who had spent the week carrying something heavy and had arrived at my door because she didn't know where else to set it down. I made tea and we sat at my kitchen table. She looked around my apartment, at the simple crib I had assembled myself the weekend before, at the plain white curtains, at the small second-hand dresser I had repainted a soft cream color on a Sunday afternoon, at the stroller folded neatly by the front door, the one she had laughed at. She didn't say anything about any of it. Why didn't you tell me, she asked eventually, when I started taking credit for things? Why didn't you say something? I turned my mug in my hands. I thought I was being kind, I said honestly. I thought keeping my name off it was a gift. I didn't realize I was also giving you permission to rewrite it. She was quiet. And then it kept going, I said, and saying something would have required dismantling the whole story. And I kept waiting for you to acknowledge it yourself, privately if not publicly. Just once. Just to me. She looked at her hands. You never asked, she said quietly, almost to herself, repeating the words I had said to her in the hallway, but this time not as a defense, as an understanding. You never asked, I agreed. You just expected. Her eyes filled up. She didn't look away. My daughter arrived on a Tuesday morning in early autumn, 6 weeks after Tara's son. I brought her home in the stroller Tara had laughed at, which rolled smoothly along the path from the parking area to my building and took the threshold of my front door without any difficulty at all. I set her down in the crib I had built myself and stood in the doorway of the small, quiet room I had put together piece by piece, every item chosen and paid for with my own careful money. Plain curtains, a second-hand dresser painted cream, a mobile I had assembled from a kit, with small wooden stars that turned slowly in the draft from the window. Nothing in the room was designed to be photographed. Everything in it was designed to be lived in. Tara and I were not finished. We talked more over the weeks that followed, careful, honest conversations that did not resolve everything quickly, because real things rarely do. But they were real conversations, not managed ones. She posted a photo of her son one afternoon, and in the caption she wrote something small and private that I think was meant for me. Grateful for the people who gave quietly when I wasn't paying attention. I didn't respond publicly. I just read it in my quiet room, with my daughter asleep in the simple crib beside me, and I felt the particular piece of someone who built something real. Not something that needed to be seen. Something that simply solidly was.